All right, let's dive into the hidden world of internet data centers. These are the massive digital vaults that basically power our entire online lives. But here's the thing, these fortresses are under constant attack. So how does a siege like this actually happen? And maybe more importantly, how do you stop it? Let's get into it.
So let me ask you something. Where do you think all your stuff, your emails, your photos, your work files, all of it, where does it actually live? It's not just floating around in some abstract cloud. Nope. It lives on very real, physical servers stacked by the thousands inside these incredibly secure buildings.
That's exactly right. An internet data center, or an IDC, is pretty much a modern-day digital fortress. It's built specifically to protect our most valuable data. And, just like any fortress throughout history, it is under a constant, relentless siege from attackers who are always looking for a way in.
So how do they actually breach the walls? Well, attackers are smart. They don't just try one thing and give up. They are constantly probing, looking for any crack, any unlocked door they can possibly find. Let's take a look at the master keys they use to get inside.
Attackers rarely rely on just one single method. They like to deliver what's called a combination punch. As you can see here, they might start by exploiting a remote service, then maybe probe for a weakness in an application, or maybe they'll trick an employee with a cleverly disguised phishing email. They'll even go after the supply chain through trusted software updates. The point is, they will try anything to get that first initial foothold.
And believe it or not, the most common way in is often the simplest. It's kind of like walking around the perimeter of a huge fortress and just checking every single door and window to see if one was left unlocked. Attackers use automated tools to constantly scan the internet for open remote access ports. Things like RDP or SSH, which are basically digital backdoors that IT admins use for maintenance. If they find one with a weak, guessable password, boom, they're in.
And here's where it gets really terrifying. A lot of the time, inside an IDC, the same administrative password gets used across a whole bunch of servers. So the second an attacker cracks the password for just one machine, they've potentially got the keys to hundreds more. One fallen server can set off this catastrophic domino effect, leading to a complete network takeover.
Okay, so once they're inside, the attackers don't just start smashing things randomly. No, they follow a very cold, calculated playbook. It's all designed to maximize the damage and, of course, their payout. In the security world, we call this the kill chain. So here's the play-by-play. First, they get that initial access we talked about. Then they go into total stealth mode, mapping out the network to find the crown jewels. We're talking backup servers, critical databases. Then they start to move silently from one machine to another. That's called lateral movement, all while escalating their privileges until they basically have God mode administrator control over everything. Then, as a little insurance policy, they steal a copy of the most sensitive data. This is for double extortion. If the victim refuses to pay the ransom, they'll just leak all their secrets. It's only after they have complete and total control that they finally pull the trigger, deploy the ransomware, and encrypt everything in sight. It sounds pretty bleak, I know. But here's the good news. For every attacker's playbook, there is a defender's blueprint. Building a true digital citadel is absolutely possible, but it takes a modern, multi-layered approach to defense.
Think about it this way. A weak defense is like having a single tall wall. Sure, it looks impressive, but once an attacker gets over it, they have free rein to do whatever they want inside. A strong defense, what we call defense in depth, is like a real medieval fortress. It has layers, outer walls, inner walls, moats, and guards posted at every critical doorway. Even if one layer gets breached, the attacker immediately runs into another obstacle.
This whole strategy really rests on 4 key pillars. First, you have to reduce the attack surface. That means sealing up every unnecessary door and window to the internet. Second, you guard the keys with strong passwords and multi-factor authentication. Third, you build those internal walls and moats with network segmentation. So if an intruder does get in, they can't just roam around freely. And finally, you have to repair any cracks in the walls immediately through vigilant patch management.
But what if the absolute worst happens? What if a really determined attacker manages to get through every single one of those layers of defense? Well, that's when you need the ultimate safety net, the one thing that can save you when all else fails.
This is the gold standard in the industry for data survival. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's super easy to remember. The 3-2-1 rule for backups. And look, this isn't just a friendly suggestion. This is the absolute bedrock of any real disaster recovery plan. So what does it actually mean?
It means you need to have at least 3 copies of your important data. Those copies should be stored on at least 2 different types of media, like, say, on a hard disk and also on a tape drive. And here is the most critical part. At least one of those copies has to be kept off-site, or even better, completely offline, totally disconnected from the network.
Remember that kill chain we talked about? Attackers are specifically programmed to hunt down and destroy your backups first. That's exactly why having an offline copy is so vital. Modern systems take this a step further with something called immutable storage. Think of it as a digital safe where the backup data literally cannot be changed or deleted for a set amount of time. It's the one copy the attackers simply cannot touch.
So when you put this all together, the strong perimeter defense, the internal controls, and those bulletproof backups, it all boils down to a really clear and powerful philosophy for how to survive in this hostile digital world.
All right, rule number 1. This is the ideal. This is the goal. You seal every crack. You guard every key. You make your fortress so incredibly strong that attackers simply can't get in. Period.
Rule number 2 is all about practical reality. You have to assume that, eventually, a determined attacker might find a way in. This is where your internal walls and moats are so critical. They contain the breach, they trap the intruder so they can't spread and take over your entire network.
And finally, rule number 3. This is the absolute, non-negotiable bottom line. Even if they get in, and even if they manage to spread, your immutable, offline backups ensure that your data can never truly be lost. You can always rebuild.
And that right there, that quote, really sums it all up. The ideal is can't get in, the key is can't spread, and the bottom line is data can't be lost. This is the essential blueprint for defending our digital world. Stay safe out there, and thanks for joining me for this explainer.